This is the Dog Nation Postgame Show, live from the UGA bookstore in Athens. Brought to you by Kroger, R.S. Andrews, Jittery Joe's Coffee, Sir Gerald's, J. Stein Law Firm, and the UGA bookstore. Here's your host, Brandon Adams.
Hello, Dog Nation. Welcome into our Dog Nation postgame show. We are live here at the UGA bookstore, and one big question to start things off tonight. How about them dogs? After a 52-17 win over Lane Kiffin, the Ole Miss Rebels, Georgia's certainly looking the part of a team that has the ability to go for three here in 23. What a night. What a performance from UGA. So much to talk about coming off this evening, and I kind of find myself sort of extra, emotional about this for some reason, whatever. Always last home game, you kind of feel that way. Your last chance to sort of be around, as the song says, 93,000 of your closest friends, and really just kind of a special night seeing Brock Bowers return, seeing the way that Georgia fans answered the challenge that Kirby Smart put out to, what was it that he said, no wine and cheese, rough and rowdy. Georgia fans were more than happy to do everything that Smart wanted them to do here tonight. And obviously Georgia sends a very strong message as you kind of move into that time of year in which teams start to make their case for postseason. The SEC championship is set now. We'll obviously talk a lot about that. Will Georgia let it be known tonight they're going to be a major part of this conversation all throughout the rest of November, into December, and perhaps deep into January there as well. So you know the drill by now. Pop on, click the link, whether you're watching DogNation.com, on YouTube, Facebook. We will get your calls here this evening. Also, we got a great group of folks here already lined up, ready to speak to us here live at the UGA bookstore. So we're going to have a great conversation tonight talking about a big win for UGA. As much fun as anything's been all season long, this is what this was here tonight. So get on board, get in line here. We'll get you going. We're going to have a great conversation. In fact, let's get our first Georgia fan to kind of pop over here tonight and share what's on his mind here. Step on over here. We've had a chance to speak already here. You got the audience waiting for you. Tell them your name and tell them what you thought about this Georgia win here tonight.
Hey, my name's Trey. Big fan of BA here. Listen to him every day.
Appreciate that.
Hey, dogs look great today. 611 yards, 300 yards rushing. Carson Beck looked good. Great to see Brock Bowers get a touchdown. Great win. Derailed the lane train. And I think it's a little hush to everybody in the NCAA that dogs are here to stay.
Yeah, listen, I agree with you. I think it's pretty clearly a message being sent here for people who've been saying, well, who has Georgia played, or what is this, or what is that? When it's a top 10 team that's only lost one time, you come out here and you hang that big a number on them, putting the yards together like you said, that's pretty much telling you everything you need to know about Georgia right there.
Oh, yeah. Hey, putting a 52 burger on the lane train, great win, and sending them back to Oxford and Tennessee, you're next. And you got the going on the.
That's right. Hey, Dog Nation Invasion next week. It's going to be a good time. Thanks for being on the show. I really appreciate that.
Go Dogs.
Really good stuff. Go Dogs right back at you. Really good stuff. We'll keep the conversation going. In fact, we'll get our next Georgia fan to pop over here. So he told me a little earlier, coming in from India. I brought some folks in from Indianapolis. Tell us your name and kind of tell us what you thought about tonight's win.
My name's Nick, from Indy. Sorry, the voice is a little bit gone. Tried to answer the chat.
Hey, listen, that's exactly, as Kirby said a year ago, if you can talk when you leave, that means you didn't yell loud enough. Well, he's hoarse. He's obviously doing exactly what Kirby Smart told him to do. And I don't know about you, but I sort of felt like from the word go tonight, even before the game kicked off, it was pretty obvious that Georgia fans were ready to create the kind of atmosphere that Kirby Smart wanted to create.
Absolutely. It was so special. And to speak on Kirby a little bit, what a nice guy. I was a little bit confused after these first few weeks. Why are we spotting these guys 7 points? But they need it. So I get it. Let's spot them 7.
I like
it. We'll spot them 7. They need it. But goodness gracious, the story needs to be how this defense was able to pivot, to change up schemes, and to really shut down what we thought was going to be a shootout. And they ended up shutting it completely down. It was pretty special to watch. Go Dogs.
I tell you, the single biggest play in the game, now this is obviously a competitive conversation, but perhaps the single biggest play of the game today may have been right there near the end of the half, the Javon Bullard interception right there, because you're talking about playing that kind of middle-late game where, obviously Georgia knew it was going to have the football to begin the third quarter, and eliminating that scoring opportunity for Ole Miss. Now, even though Georgia didn't exactly take firm advantage of its next offensive possession, and really its next offensive possession to begin the third quarter. But nonetheless, the interception by Bullard eliminates that scoring chance for Ole Miss, and that's where the momentum sort of flipped and stayed, I thought.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And, hey, I'll say this. Feel free to steal our signs. We're just going to bust you in the mouth anyway. It don't matter. Go Dogs.
I love it. That's awesome stuff.
Absolutely.
Thanks for being a part of the show. Appreciate that. Really good stuff. Georgia fans are fired up tonight in a very big way. You love to see that. We'll get your Zoom calls rolling in there as well. Let's get our next Georgia fan to step over. This is a good friend of ours. We've seen him many times before. Really appreciate that. Remind folks what your name is and tell us what you thought about this win here tonight.
Hey, my name's Jordan. I yelled and hollered the whole time like Coach said.
Listen, that's another – listen, you know it's that kind of night around here when you got two, commenters in a row who kind of got the raspy voice and they're hoarse. That means they exactly did what Kirby Smart wants to do. Just like one of Kirby's players. Listen, if Kirby puts the challenge out, you got to answer that call, and you clearly have tonight.
That's right. Go Dogs. I just want to say, the Dogs are kind of ruthless. We give teams hope in the first 5 minutes, and we rip it right away from them. So that's what I love about the Dogs. Go Dogs.
Absolutely. And how about Kendall Milton tonight breaking out in a big way? You love to see that?
I would vote him player of the game.
I did. So I'm going to be honest with you. I think he should have been player of the game there as well. When we get to our player of the game, unfortunately, Kendall didn't win it. A little bit of an issue with some of our audience in terms of who they voted for player of the game, but I guess that's what happens when you got a little democracy going on.
I guess so.
Hey, thanks for being on the show. Really good stuff. Hey, good night here tonight. Georgia fans weighing in. We're going to get some calls here there as well. So if you're in line, we'll get right to you. But let's also go to our Zoom calls there as well. Ace Dog, you're first up here tonight on the Dog Nation postgame show. Ace Dog, how about them Dogs? Big win tonight for UGA. Ace, what did you think about it? Hey, Ace, you're live on the air. Go ahead.
How you doing tonight, BA? Can you hear me?
I'm doing great, Ace. I'm glad that. Yes, I sure can. Go ahead. I sure can. Go ahead, Ace.
First off, BA, let me just start by saying but to all you veterans out there, I just want to say thank you for the service. It's a great day to be a dog, BA.
Boy, it sure is, Ace Dog. I appreciate that. What else did you think about the game here today?
Well, I'm concerned about giving up a touchdown on the first drive of the NBA, but they finally got it together on defense. A little concerned about the injuries. We're trying to get our offense back to full force, and here we are dropping like flies on defense. And it's not a good sign, BA. And kind of worried me a little bit.
Well, no, Ace. Ace Dog. Great day indeed, Ace Dog. I appreciate the call. And you talk about injuries. Obviously, that's one of the things we'll be watching for coming out of tonight's game. You mentioned some guys on the defensive side of the ball there. You've also got, Ladd McConkey, I know, is dealing with a little bit of an ankle injury there, too. So watching to see what comes out of this victorious UGA locker room from an injury standpoint is obviously going to be an important part of that. Let me also bring our next commenter here live, because the other thing that Ace Dog mentioned is obviously today's Veterans Day. We celebrated that on the field today. And speaking of veterans, our buddy Army Dog Charlie stops over here. Boy, I tell you what, Charlie, I want to get your thoughts about the win that Georgia had. But how about in honor of Veterans Day, the beautiful rendition of God Bless America at halftime, the way in which Timothy Miller, who you know from Braves games, is singing that, the entire crowd singing along with that there. And then, the tribute to the armed forces with the Red Coat Band here today. On top of what was already a great win for UGA, really kind of a special thing to see the way in which everybody stood up, celebrated our country, and celebrated those such as yourself who've given their service to our country. What a great thing that was to be able to see that today here on this Veterans Day.
It was awesome, BA. It brought me to tears, no lie.
It really did. I tell you, the Red Coat Band, when they do that combination of like Amazing Grace, kind of going into America the Beautiful, they've done that for the last few years. It is just one of the most stirring things you're ever going to hear.
Absolutely. The Redcoats are top notch.
They really are.
How about them dogs hanging half 100?
I love that. Listen, I love every part of that for sure. What did you think about the game?
Oh, it was awesome, man. I'm loud anyways from being in the Army and screaming at people all those years, but I've lost my voice a little bit.
No doubt.
Yeah, and you know I love you, brother.
I love you too. You guys had a great tailgate going on today. You love to see that?
You need to show up.
Hey, we're going to be there.
Bring little Charlie right there and bring Mama. And come on to the tailgate.
Hey, we're going to do it, Charlie. Thanks for being on the show. Really good stuff.
Thank you. Good to see
absolutely. You, good to see you there as well. So really good stuff rolling through here. If you're watching live, dognation.com, YouTube, Facebook, click the link. You'll get on the show. You can tell everybody's in a good mood and a festive mood here celebrating this great win tonight, including our good friend here now, Kathy Aquaviva. who for years I pronounced the wrong name, and she was kind enough. Yeah, she's kind enough to help get me fixed up good on that. But listen, how did it feel to see a great Georgia win here tonight?
Amazing. It was really great.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What's not to like? Over 600 yards of offense, 300 plus for both passing and rushing. We had 5 different guys score. Kendall Milton found himself. Kendall Milton became a true Georgia running back tonight.
Absolutely.
That was just incredible. What else? He had 127 yards. At the beginning, I kind of thought it was going to be this tit for tat, maybe who got the ball the last possession sort of outcome. And then our defense found themselves and had that stop, and it was just over. It was just really fun to watch.
Well, I'll tell you, that's why I love what Georgia did offensively to begin this game, because I'm like you. It's like, okay, it's another offensive possession in which they begin with a score. We've seen that this year. Kirby Smart's even joked about that some. But then they also score again on their, next possession there as well. And all of a sudden you're thinking, okay, well, Lane Kiffin, offensive minded head coach. This could be one of those games in which there's a lot of points on both sides. So thankfully, with Ole Miss kind of establishing some offensive momentum to begin this game, Georgia more than answered that, and all of a sudden that gave the space for this Georgia defense to really assert itself. But Georgia being at its best, showing its full firepower to begin the game, that really, I think, kind of calmed the mood here, and you didn't have to be too worried about the fact that, to Ole Miss's credit, they did have some success on third down, moving the chains, and found some scores early.
And I hope that quarterback is all right. I do want to give a shout-out to my youngest son, who joined me for his first ever night game at Sanford. Island's over there. Come on.
You want to come over? Yeah, come on over here.
I got him here, you guys.
I love that. So we got to ask, how was your first night game here at Sanford Stadium?
Absolutely beautiful. I love the fourth quarter with the lights going everywhere. Absolutely just awe-inspiring. Beautiful.
Listen, I thought the entire thing tonight, the fourth quarter was awesome. I thought the crowd was amazing. And it was cold, a little bit of rainy, but honestly, the fans were great the entire time, weren't they?
Oh, yeah, absolutely amazing. Honestly, the cold didn't even really bother me that much towards the end. Just got the whole environment just amazing.
Kathy, you know this, when Kirby Smart, when he challenges the fans to do that, they're going to answer his challenge.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And then some.
No doubt about that. Well, Kathy, thanks, guys, for being on the show. Appreciate that. Good to have you here tonight. Really fun stuff. Great good group of Georgia fans having a great time tonight here. Kathy, one of our favorites. Really, really good stuff. JC, you're next up here on the Dog Nation postgame show. JC, you're live here. We know that you all love these dogs. We know you got plenty to say. What did you think about this Georgia win here tonight?
Hey, Brandon, nice seeing you again. I saw you at the last game.
You too, JC.
Again, thanks.
That's
again
right.
For
I remember that.
All you do for this channel. And again, I'm a vet, and thanks again for I'll do it again for this country. But a great win for the Georgia Bulldogs tonight. We showed out. We showed how we should play. And like you always say, enjoy this time. Okay, it might not come again. So we're going for 3 in 23, and we're on to Tennessee, so we can try to get another win there.
JC, I love it. Good stuff. Go for 3 in 23. And, sir, thank you so much for your service to our country. And we were so happy to see you live here in person last week. So much fun. Always appreciate your opinion here about UGA. Certainly a special night and what has the chance to be a special season. JC, thank you so much. So really good stuff there from JC, kind of weighing in on that. And I'll also say this, JC talked about go for 3 in 23. Let me just do this real quickly before we say hello to our next Georgia fan. Tonight was also a big night because the first step towards go for 3 in 23, you got to own the East first before you have a chance to move on to all your other goals, winning national championship, things like that. Step 1 is that division. So in honor of that, the original Own the East t-shirt right here. This is the last year I'm ever going to get a chance to wear this, obviously, because after this year there's no more Eastern Division anymore. But one more time to be able to bring that out here tonight, you certainly love that. And so that's a fun thing to be able to do. Step on over here. Griffin. Yeah, Griffin, good to see you again. And I tell you, Griffin, it's a fun night. You can look around here at the UGA bookstore and you can see everybody's having fun with this. What stands out to you about this big Georgia win?
First of all, I'm from North Carolina, so the North Carolina Dogs always still come down to Athens. And
yeah, listen, they do. The big bunch. I mean, first of all, great for recruiting, but also a big crop of dogs that live up there in the Tar Heel State.
Tonight, the offensive line, to me, showed more more than they've shown all year, and I was very proud of them. Carson Beck stood in the pocket and looked great, hit the receivers as we needed to, and we went ahead and took control of the East.
Yeah,
Cannot wait to get to Atlanta and see you guys there again, man.
I can't wait to do it.
And let's go for the three-peat.
Go for the three-peat. Go for 3-23. I love that, being back in the SEC championship game.
See you there in Atlanta, Brandon.
Yeah, Griffin, looking forward to it. Thank you so much. Good stuff.
Appreciate your show every day.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. So listen, it's always good when Tennessee loses a football game. Most of us agree with that. But today, extra good to see Tennessee lose because it allowed me to put this T-shirt out and say, own the East. And tonight, Georgia began play already knowing a clinched division, but obviously Georgia has goals and aspirations so much higher than that. So, very little acknowledgement of that prior to the game. But now that the game's over with, we can celebrate the idea of another division title being won. We got more folks in line here. We're going to get them live on the air. We've also got calls to get to there as well. Ryan Walker, you're next up here in the Dog Nation postgame show. Ryan, we appreciate you being here. How about them dogs? What did you think about tonight?
How about them dogs, BA? But first and foremost, shout out to my fellow vets, baby. Y'all got to start showing my U.S. Coast Guard, my branch of service, a little bit more love. Y'all don't show us enough love on the show, baby. And we got tons of dogs on the water. So I'm going to have my hotty-toddy for you guys tonight.
I like it.
So we'll do it like this. You got to give a shout out tonight. Carson Beck did his thing. He should already be within the Heisman candidate conversation. And I did a little something retro for y'all tonight. I got the Kirby Smart throwback jersey on. So shout out to Coach Smart tonight.
Nice.
He did his thing with the adjustments. Yes, sir. I figured you liked that one, BA. Kendall Milton is looking like the guy that we knew that he would look like when he's healthy. I'm happy that he's healthy. He's rolling. And coming down the stretch of games, we're definitely going to need him. Dejon Edwards did his thing. Lad McConkey, the birthday boy, had a birthday cake. They say Heather the Parrot Dinich says we have a cupcake schedule. So the birthday boy decided to eat tonight and have a cupcake. Happy birthday, lad. Do your thing, baby. I loved seeing little Clinton Portis get in the game. His name is Andrew Paul. That is a name that everybody has to get ready to get used to within the future. He definitely showed flashes at the end of the game. The defense stepped up as usual. Those young linebackers, man, what more can we say? We know they were going to make mistakes, but those boys are hungry and they don't mind laying wood. That's something I can give them. Javon Bullard does what he does every day in practice and every game. Got to give Dominique Lovett, got to get on him a little bit. You got to catch those when you have those passes in your hands. That interception certain to happen tonight, but you did have 77 yards catching tonight, and you did your thing. The one thing Kirby Smart needs to be nominated for is Coach of the Year. When you have this many injuries and you're having guys to come back, you're training young pups, and they're coming in and dominating, Kirby should be considered for Coach of the Year. And when you look at what we've had to deal with this year and then the back end of this schedule being loaded the way that it is, and then we're getting close to the SEC championship game, it's going to be a fight with Alabama. Kirby needs it. If we beat Alabama, go ahead and hand him Coach of the Year, because I don't see any beating us, BA, when it comes to the national championship game. The only team that might have a shot might be Michigan, but I don't think they'll beat us because, again, too inconsistent. So that's all I have for you tonight. I'm a little excited, Shout out to my fellow vets. And we had our hotty-toddy tonight against Ole Miss. We'll see you next week when we go and bathe the Tennessee River and collect that W and eat that barbecue up this next weekend. So how about them dogs?
How about them dogs, Ryan Walker? And thank you for your service there as well. And we do, as you say, love those dogs in the water, those who've served in the Coast Guard. And by the way, if you watch College Game Day this morning, right before the show began, they were showing some of the special uniforms being worn around college football today. And one of the uniforms they did put on display was for the Coast Guard Academy, honoring the Medal of Honor recipient that obviously lost his life going back to World War II from the Coast Guard. Beautiful uniform and really a special sort of representation of obviously the great legacy of that branch of the armed services. So, Ryan, we certainly appreciate your service to our country. And I tell you, there is nothing that fills me with more pride, and I mean this sincerely, and all of you know that I do, nothing that fills me with more pride to know that so many of the folks who've either stood here next to me tonight or called in are veterans of our armed services. Boy, what a great testament that is to my audience. And I must be doing something right if we've got people like that who are a regular part of our audience and participating in our conversation here tonight. Ryan, you included. Really appreciate that. Love everything you have to say right there. I agree with you there as well. that in terms of the success that Georgia's enjoying right now, Kirby Smart probably does not get enough credit for that. And people have a tendency, and this is not just a new thing, this has been going on for a long time, college football, other sports there as well, that when you think about Coach of the Year type conversation, you sort of think about whoever's kind of like getting more out of a team that's perhaps thought to not be very good. The very best coach and the very best team oftentimes gets overlooked for Coaches of the Year, and I believe that Kirby's never been a National Coach of the Year, I don't think. But in a year like this, Ryan, I think you're absolutely right that when you see this team once again at the spot where it is now as you kind of move towards the end of November back in the SEC championship, obviously Kirby Smart's job as a coach has clearly been impactful to get Georgia there in that spot. As we bring our next Georgia fan over here, I'll also say that I do think we are building towards, now that we know that it's set, Georgia and Alabama again, the SEC championship, I think we're heading for quite a clash here. And Alabama, to its credit, got a dominant win today on the road at Kentucky. Georgia dominates a top 10 team, Ole Miss. And so the hype for this game is going to build. And when you look at the crowded landscape right now for the college football playoff, you can make a case that the stakes are higher for this game involving Georgia and Alabama than perhaps any other SEC championship these two teams have played. So something to keep in mind there on that. We got a great group of Georgia fans here. Now, I got a comment before y'all do. You both have the number 13 jerseys on. How much fun was it tonight to see Stetson Bennett back here in Athens, honored as the Broyles Award recipient? The award obviously won last year. Looked to me that he was doing great. Obviously, he was in great spirits. And on a night in which so many big names were sort of back or, you know, and to be celebrated and honored, seeing Bennett and seeing him looking as happy and healthy as he looked here tonight, I really, really love that. I'm sure you guys must have there as well.
Absolutely. I was so happy to see Stetson and Nolan, and I imagine there are a few other of the Philly dogs here.
Yeah.
And congratulations for the dogs winning the East, but we've got Tennessee next week, and we got a tough Georgia Tech team, and then bring on Alabama.
Absolutely. Listen, Go Dogs! We've kind of gotten back to that time of year in which, you know, this is typically where Georgia's kind of been at its best, and it sort of feels like tonight maybe Georgia's making that move. But as you say, you know, Alabama's still going to be a very good team, and obviously whatever happens if Georgia's lucky enough to be in the college football playoff, that's going to be a competitive environment there as well. But it was really nice to see Georgia send a big message tonight that no matter what anybody else is doing, this is also a Georgia team, just like the last 2 years, is going to be very formidable. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I lost my voice at the game.
See, it's another Georgia fan who gets up here and can't quite talk, got that little raspiness, which is exactly what Kirby Smart said that he wanted. And, I mean, how much did you love the atmosphere inside the stadium tonight?
It was awesome, and it's also awesome to have my dad here since he's also a Navy veteran. So
oh, that's incredible to hear. Well, thank you, sir, for your service to our country. I really appreciate that. And as we said, we've had so many, veterans here as a part of that conversation. You have no idea how much that means to me that someone like you would be a part of what we do here at Dog Nation. I really, really appreciate your service to our country.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And I'm Andrew Sisson. We always.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Andrew. Good to see you again. Absolutely. Well, listen, Andrew's one of our great commenters, and we say this a lot that we got a chance. It was last week we saw you here, right? Was it last week? Yeah. That, I get a chance to see these names. They pop in here for a lot of the Dog Nation Daily stuff, and I read the names. You're always excited when you get a chance to sort of see those people in person and enjoy that. That's always a lot of fun. So, Andrew, thanks for bringing your family out here tonight. Great night. Grow Dogs, indeed. Good stuff, and thanks for being here and being a part of the show. You'll have a great rest of your weekend, all right? Good stuff from Georgia fans here, having a great time with that. We got a great line of folks who are going to be on the air here live. Let's go to Waylon. Waylon, you're next up here on the Dog Nation postgame show. Waylon, what did you think about this game tonight? How about them dogs? Tell us your thoughts.
Hey, go Dogs, go Dogs. Hey, how about this guy right here? How about him? You see that?
I like that.
Lad McConkey.
I like that. Oh, yeah, there you go.
Then, how about that guy? You remember the other day I got on YouTube and I asked you about Brock Bowers, the talking heads are saying he's going to make a touchdown. He's like, I don't know about that. What'd you think about that?
You're right. No, you're right, Waylon. You're right, Waylon. I undersold Brock Bowers, which is a huge mistake because I'll never do that again because I believe that Brock Bowers was actually, you're a great comic book artist, or a comic book style artist, I should say. I believe that Brock Bowers really is like a superhero because to come back and do what he did tonight is truly an amazing thing.
Oh, he's an alien, man. He's an alien. I mean, it's just amazing. But, hey, go Dogs. I enjoy the show. Keep up the good work.
Well, Waylon, I certainly appreciate that. You're a wonderful artist, by the way. We love your golden shoe submissions, the stuff we get a chance to show on the air. Keep them coming, Waylon, because I tell you, you're a very talented guy.
I appreciate that, man.
All right, thanks for calling the show, Waylon. Really good stuff there. And Waylon, one of the things he was talking about was the fact that, probably undersold Brock Bowers a little bit. I thought he'd play, put a uniform on, maybe take a snap, but the idea that he'd catch a touchdown pass, the idea that he'd play so much, I never thought he'd be doing that this quick, but that's the mistake I make for underselling or underappreciating just exactly how superhuman Brock Bowers can be when he wants to be. What an amazing performance tonight.
Unbelievable that the guy comes back to actually play for the University of Georgia when he could just go on and skate to the NFL. So we were duly impressed with his performance.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about one of the great competitors, and I mentioned off the top of the show that tonight was a little bit of an emotional night for whatever reason, super emotional when you see Bowers get the touchdown. I was just so happy for him because this is one of the truly special players to ever play at UGA.
I'm going to tell you, I've been around since the days of Herschel Walker when I first started watching Georgia football. He is on the Mount Rushmore of Georgia football, no doubt about it. That guy is the greatest college football player I have seen in at least 2 decades.
Remind us of your name one more time.
Bubba West.
Yeah, Bubba, good to see you. What else do you think about the game here tonight?
I thought the game was unbelievable. Carson Beck had a great game. I'm going to go ahead and say this now, too. Deshaun Edwards had a great game. Kendall Milton had a great game. But my wife loves the Finnish long drink.
Oh, that's good to know.
And I love peaches. Where can I get a peach long drink that's like a unicorn?
You're right. The peach-flavored version of the Finnish long drink is selling pretty quickly here, so not an easy thing to do. So we'll keep our eye out for that. I know some people have found it, and then a lot of times it sells out very quickly, but I'm glad to know that you like it. In addition to the peach, what else is your favorite flavor?
Original.
Yeah.
I love cranberry, too. And then when I'm trying to be good, I drink the zero sugar, but yeah, they're all great. So I just need a peach. I haven't had a peach one yet.
We're gonna see if we can find you some peach flavored version of the Finnish laundry. I do know some people, so it could be that I might be able to.
Hey, hook me up, please.
Well, listen,
celebrate with that tonight.
I appreciate you guys being on the show. It's good stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, BA.
Hey, great group of Georgia fans here. Everyone having a good time. Really good stuff. We also got some folks here on hold. We'll get you up here. We'll get you rolling here on tonight's show there as well. Jeff Sentell, we're going to hear from him coming up in a little bit there too. So a lot of fun here tonight. And by the way, you got folks down here on the first floor shopping as well down there. They're having a good time doing that. I was here earlier today. My son actually bought a new thing. My wife bought a new sweatshirt. That's what we do. We come here before the game. We get stocked up on our apparel because you got a lot of big Georgia games coming up. You want to look your best for those games. And the best way to get all of that, the Vineyard Vines, the Peter Millar, the Johnny O, the Nike Coaches gear, all of the great stuff that looks good on game day. The best place to get all of that, it's right down here on the first floor of the UGA bookstore. It's been our home away from home for a good number of years. Hard to believe this is our last time to be here for the 2023 season, but a whole lot of fun there. Let's go back to phones here. Isha, you're next up here live on our Dog Nation postgame show. Isha, what'd you think about this big win for Georgia here tonight?
Go Dogs. Great game, PA. I mean, we couldn't ask for nothing better. I'm kind of expected to give up a first drive touchdown or a first quarter touchdown, we say. So that I'm expecting that from now. It's just one of those things that you kind of expect that. First off, I don't know if she's still on here, but change the subject. My old neighbor that used to live next a couple of doors down from me, Lisa Walters, was on here earlier. She moved back with her husband, who's a veteran as well. And happy Veterans Day to everybody. We never served together, but we served as neighbors. And it just so happened that I think it's funny that when they sold their house, another Georgia fan moved down there. So even though they're not here, she got another person in the neighborhood representing the Bulldogs. It's like 3 of them. So back to the game at hand. It was spectacular just to see that defense. It's like those adjustments. I'm never worried about anything in the game defensively because they usually make the right plays after they go on their little spurt. I'm pleased with the way everything happened. I just hate some of the injuries. That's part of the game. That's where we go next man up. Even if when the second string, third string, fourth string, I should say, came in. They gave up some yards with the new quarterback, but they held their own and did their thing as well.
Yep.
So I'm pleased with the win, BA, and I want to thank the crowd, that everybody participated in the stands. All I could hear was noise. on my TV, and I got two TVs going, so I still hear the noise coming from from the Georgia game. So I'm pleased, and that helps out. They cause false starts, they cause some signal issues, people trying to hear the plays. And so, yes, I love the atmosphere in the Georgia Stadium. I hate we don't got no more home games, but only one we
I
got
know it.
left is the one in Atlanta. Go ahead and just bring the rain in that one.
I love it, Isha. Good stuff. Thank you for being here, and obviously thank you for your service there as well. And you're right, a very, very big Georgia win today, and we're going to try to catch up with Jeff Sentell here coming up in a moment, and Jeff will give us an update on some of what Kirby Smart has to say about some of the injury situation coming out of today's game, because obviously Georgia's got some very big games coming up. Isha, we certainly appreciate you weighing in, sharing your thoughts on UGA. We're going to keep it going here right now. More Georgia fans joining us. Got a little bit of intel here. We have another veteran joining us here right now. Is it the Army? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Well, sir, thank you so much for your service to our country. I really appreciate that. And we were talking a little bit earlier. How about the unbelievable tribute by the Red Coat Band there at the half with the singing of God Bless America, and then the performance of America the Beautiful and the combination of Amazing Grace. Always a stirring tribute when the Red Coat Band does that. But for some reason tonight, I thought there was just a little bit of an extra emphasis on that tonight. I was in the stands at the half, when, walked out to see my family for a moment and had a chance to just listen to everybody singing God Bless America. That was such a moving moment. I hope it was for you as well.
It was. A shout out to the university for giving a recognition to our veterans, past and present. It does mean a lot to all of us, and a shout out to all my fellow veterans on this Veterans Day. Hey, a shout out to our fans because you called us out. We heard you this week, right? Twice at least.
Sure.
So I think the fans responded.
I do too.
Next thing, I think people talk about GPS speeds on players. I hope somebody's tracking Carson Beck's pulse. Yeah. I don't think his pulse goes over 40.
He's so relaxed.
I mean,
so relaxed.
I've never seen him worry about anything. I mean, he is locked in.
The other thing that Isha also brought up there a moment ago too, speaking of guys in the offense, how about the performance from Kendall Milton tonight? That's a guy that Georgia fans have loved for a long time, and they've rooted for Kendall as he's kind of battled through some injury and some stuff like that. And tonight he really gave that extra component to the offense to go along with what Carson Beck was doing well. We may have seen the best game for Kendall Milton in a Georgia uniform tonight. How much fun was that?
I agree. He has struggled a lot. He looked very, very good today. I know he had over 100 yards. I wanted him to get that last long touchdown. He just couldn't quite finish that play. And just last thing, look forward to the Dog Nation invasion at the Tennessee River next week.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Fun. We own the East. Let's go on the river. And we'll own Atlanta in a couple weeks.
I love that. That's great stuff. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your service to our country. Well said. He said, well, you own the East tonight. You're going to own the Tennessee River next week, and you're going to own it in Atlanta coming up after that. That is exactly how it's all going to go down here. Really, really good stuff. We got more Georgia fans who are going to join us. Let's also go back to phones there as well. Bryce Dixon, you're next up here on the Dog Nation postgame show. Bryce, how about them dogs? How does it feel to be a dog here on Saturday night?
It feels good, BA. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Bryce. I sure am.
It was amazing, this complete domination from the offense and defense. Once Kirby made those third quarter adjustments, it was over for the Rebels. It was just amazing. The running backs are all clicking together with Robinson, Milton and Paul, and all those guys are just healthy, you can tell. And the run game and passing game is just increasing as the season goes. So I'm just looking forward to Tennessee. Our next game, and then Tech, and then we go to Atlanta to play Alabama, and I'm just looking forward to the big game in Atlanta for sure, just to show everybody what we can do.
I am too, Bryce. It always means a little something different when you're playing Alabama in an SEC championship. And obviously one of the biggest wins of the Kirby Smart era came in Indianapolis, going back to the end of the 2021 season against Alabama. Last year Georgia wasn't able to beat Alabama because Alabama wasn't going to have to play Georgia. But hopefully this year it's going to be one of those chances for Georgia to kind of do what it has not done before, which is beat Alabama in Atlanta in an SEC championship. I think that can be a lot of fun. We certainly appreciate your thoughts there on that. Also got some more Georgia fans hanging out with us here right now. Tell us your name and tell us how it felt to watch this game here tonight.
Hey, I'm Ted Pennell. This is my daughter, Malone.
Hey, Malone, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. Tonight's game was awesome to watch.
It was awesome indeed. Ted, what did you think about it?
Well, I'll tell you what, the weather was going to be a little dubious, and called my daughter and I said, I'm not going to the game. And she said, "No, you're going to the game. You're taking me with you." And I said, all right, we're going to the game. And she's been pretty much of a good luck charm.
Yeah, listen, you can sit out in the cold and the weather like that. Kirby Smart said, hey, listen, I want to hear about the cold. I want to hear about that. I want you guys to be out there making a bunch of noise. It sounds like that's what y'all are doing.
We made that noise. We were cheering for him the whole time.
What would impress you the most about UGA this evening, Malone?
Oh my gosh, that Brock Bowers was actually out there tonight.
Can you believe that?
Oh, that's insane after 3 weeks.
It's amazing. Amazing to think that he's able to do that. I mean, listen, I thought he would be dressed out. I thought he'd show up and play a few snaps. I never would have imagined he would have been able to catch a touchdown pass the way that he did. Obviously, it's my mistake for short-changing anything he's capable of doing, but what an amazing, almost superhuman level of injury recovery to be back and able to do this here on a night like that.
Well, it was fantastic. It was, it was slightly superhuman.
It really was indeed. Well, listen, I appreciate you guys being part of the show. Appreciate you guys making it such a great atmosphere in the stadium tonight. Thank you for being here on the Dog Nation postgame show.
Oh, thank you. It was awesome being here.
Well, good stuff, guys. Really appreciate that. Excellent stuff there. More Georgia fans kind of rolling through here. So if you're leaving the stadium, you want to pop over and see us at the UGA bookstore, get a chance to do that. We'll also give you our player of the game here coming up there as well. Back to the phones we go, though. Our buddy Randy in Tifton is standing by here. Randy, let them know how it feels here on a Saturday night.
I tell you what, B.A., we had friends come over and just to watch Missouri beat Tennessee and then stayed the whole game for Georgia. And I'm telling you, that was a great game. Yes, we was tied one time, and then Georgia just took over and just like a snake, just wrapping around you, just pulled the life out of them. But for anybody that don't think Georgia's number one, they got to be crazy. And when we own the Tennessee River next week for Dog Nation Invasion, and all the people over there's crying because they lost to Missouri, you can't cry because Georgia's coming to town, and we're going all the way, B.A., and I'll see you in Tennessee and Knoxville. Go Dogs.
Randy, I can't wait to see you there, too. Going to be an awesome experience. Cannot wait for that. Next week, Dog Nation Invasion of the Tennessee River. We're going to celebrate Own the East right there on their water, moving into Neyland Stadium. Looking forward to getting that 11th win next week. Can't wait to do that. We got Jeff Sentell standing by there as well. Let me very quickly, before we talk to Jeff, squeeze this in. Our player of the game, courtesy of the J. Stein Law Firm, is Carson Beck. Now, listen, Dog Nation, I love y'all, but this has got to be Kendall Milton tonight. And listen, I know we're democracy and whatever else, and people get a chance to vote. Y'all, it's got to be Kendall Milton. But nonetheless, Dog Nation has voted. They voted for Carson Beck. I find myself once again having to say I don't know that our audience has necessarily made the best possible selection on a night when Milton perhaps played his best game in a Georgia uniform. Feel like he should have been the guy, but nonetheless, Dog Nation has given that to Carson Beck, who also played a very good game and certainly was very important to Georgia, especially in the early going, kind of establishing the offensive firepower that gave Georgia a chance to eventually build a comfortable lead. Tonight felt like it should have been Milton, but nonetheless, congratulations to Carson, our player of the game, courtesy of the J. Stein Law Firm. Of course, you can find the J. Stein Law Firm online at jsteinlawfirm.com. Josh Stein, two-time graduate of the University of Georgia, double dog as we call them, including a graduate at UGA Law School, working to help the dogs and dog fans out in their time of need. If you've been hurt or injured in an accident, you want to be made right. You want to be made whole. You want the compensation you deserve. That's what Josh Stein and his team are going to fight to get for you. Kind of a boutique-style firm. That means they give you the sort of small firm attention that you deserve. That's what they're all about. So find them online, J. Stein Law Firm, for a lot more on that. All right, Jeff Sentell, you're next up here. We're glad that you're with us here on our Dog Nation postgame show. And, Jeff, if you don't mind, obviously there's a lot to celebrate here tonight from this Georgia win, but I know you've had a chance to spend some time with some victorious Georgia players and hopefully hear from Kirby Smart there as well. One of the questions and concerns that comes up, some of the injuries that we saw here tonight, is there anything you can update on us on in terms of what players or Kirby Smart himself has said about some of the injuries that were sustained on the field here tonight?
Yeah, I don't have an update on that, Brandon. I got to hang in Lane Kiffin's post-game press conference and then go with the players. I did see, it looked to me like Ladd McConkey was going to go in. I think somebody even watching the broadcast had said that McClendon told him he wasn't going to go back in even when he tried to, and he grabbed his helmet. Lad just kind of walked by on the field out here. He had his ankle tape. He had a suit jacket, sport coat jacket thing, walking around. He looked fine. He looked like he would have been nothing crazy. I mean, but I don't know what you think, but I thought this was just it was almost overload of emotional moments. You had Coach Rick.
It was.
You had senior night. You had Stetson Bennett. You had Jordan Davis in the house. You had, Nolan Smith earlier in the day working Dog Nation up into a fervor with everything on ESPN's College Gameday. You kept looking around. Stetson Bennett made it. He got presented with the Burlsworth Trophy. It was almost like Grandma's Thanksgiving dinner when she keeps breaking out the favorite pumpkin pie after you've already had the pecan pie, after she brought out her pound cake. Like, you're like, this is just too much. I'm full with everything I got here. And, I mean, Brendan, the things that just come to me, man, I'm sitting here, watching and, waiting on this call and hanging out. Like, the seniors are walking by carrying like Zion Logue just walked by with the number 96. He got his nameplate off his locker. Never going to need that again. Never going to use that again. Brendan, at the end of the game, he came out to the tunnel and waited for everybody. Lots of people go in. Lots of people go celebrate. They zap each other up. They glad hand. Zion stood right in front of the goalpost. And every time a senior came by, every time somebody he played with that was in part of senior night tonight, even Carson Beck, he made sure he hugged him, told him he loved him, dapped him up. I asked him why he did that. He says, man, that's what I've seen leaders at Georgia are supposed to do. You turn your head around, that's a nice little moment, and you start walking. And somehow Jordan Davis is up there with the Georgia band, the Red Coat band, trying to lead it again, yelling at him. They're chanting at him. He's taking a million selfies with people. I mean, you just look everywhere around this, man, and this was really a showcase for Georgia football tonight.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because I actually started our show by saying something similar. First of all, I'm kind of always somewhat sentimental for the final home game anyway because, as I've said a million times, you're always just so shocked at how fast it goes by, and you only get like 6 of these, and you want to try to soak them all up. So there's already sort of an extra level of emotion for me, usually connected to the last home game anyway. Then when you add to that, Jeff, this is the last time that Georgia will ever win the SEC East. The division is going away after next year. So the whole idea of own the East and what that has been, that goes away after this year. Fans don't care about this, but this was also the final night and what has been a really special press box. I remember the very first time I ever went to this press box in Sanford Stadium. For me, that was back in 2004, and I felt like I had been kind of invited into this almost like backstage type world. A special thing had been unlocked for me to even be a chance to do that. And tonight, you say goodbye to that press box, which for the average fan, like I said before, that's not something they're interested in. But for me, it kind of added to the emotion of the night. And then senior night's always a big deal for me, no matter who the seniors are, because you just realize how poignant of a moment that is for them playing their final game. And then you start bringing back, Brian Harmon, who won the British Open. Stetson Bennett's here. Nolan Smith on game day today. Like Mark Richt, who got a huge ovation. Brock Bowers, when he was announced as starter, he gets a huge ovation. Then he catches a touchdown. It's like, I don't know that you could have packed more emotion into one game than Georgia kind of did tonight. This was one of the more moving, and then Veterans Day on top of that, the terrific stuff at halftime. This was one of the more moving games I think I can remember here. It was just really a very special night, and the best that I could tell, Jeff, I know you were down in the field, but the best that I could tell, it seemed like Georgia fans were just soaking up every minute of it.
Yeah, that's a great way to frame it up, Brandon. I'm sitting here trying to catalog and detail only the high notes because we had a million to talk about tonight, and you're right. Brian Harmon, you have a British Open winner. He's kind of like the 8th or 9th thing you think of. And then, of course, what is he, Brandon? Is he the alien Brock Bowers? Is he oh, my goodness. I mean, he's like, what he did tonight, I don't think most people really realize it. Like what he was doing, what he was getting ready. I'll tell you a little story, Brandon, now that he's playing again. When the injury happened, somebody pretty close to that situation told me, they're like, you know what? He's hurt pretty bad. It's not cool that he's hurt, but they said, you know what? This is a good thing for him. He needs a challenge. He needs something to just focus in on and try to see if he can. He needs a new final boss. He needs a new thing that he can see if he can go track down and hunt down because he's different, Brandon. He's just a world-class athlete. And, who approaches injuries like that in terms of when can he come back? Will he be the same? Or the people that know Brock Bowers well, they just say, you know what? This is good for him. He needs to challenge himself like this with a mini mission inside a season, Brandon. He comes back. You see him blocking a lot during the game. Georgia doesn't have to lean on him as much in the game. And the other thing, Brennan, I thought you kind of handled that tactfully when you were talking about trying to be a democracy. I know there's at least one constituent from Woodstock, Georgia, that's going to say, I would probably agree with you on that Kendall Milton call, 14 yards per carry, only 9 carries. Brandon, he's just different when he's fully healthy. Like, he's a player. Like, I've been following him for years, and it's like once that Lambo gets out of the shop and it's 100%, that thing's going to run perfectly. That thing's going to run like one of the best backs in the SEC. Unfortunately, the sad note is we've seen a lot more Kendall Milton trying to go with everything he had at 80, 85, 90%, 70% a lot, and there's a different back there. When you throw that type of back in the Georgia offense, you can complement him with Dejon Edwards, and then you got all the stuff out wide. I mean, Carson had a great night, but you got to remember, what was that big explosive 43 yards, I think, to Dominic Lovett? He had 77 yards tonight. McConkey had 81. And, Brandon, we would be committing, I think, a little bit recruiting guy, post-game analyst malpractice if I didn't say the following. C.J. Allen's got 2 more seasons in Athens, and he's going to put together a career. This is my feeling. This was my feeling before he got to Georgia. People will compare linebackers at Georgia to come to C.J. Allen. And, yeah, that's a little too fast. Yeah, he just started one game. Brandon, he had 9 tackles tonight. He led Georgia in tackles. I talked to Shamal Munden after the game, and he was like, man, I'm glad everybody got to see that. We've been seeing that almost off the jump and off the rip with both C.J. Allen and Raylan Wilson in their time as dogs, man. And it's kind of crazy. You see at the end of the game, I was talking to another media member down on the field, and I said 2 points, and it just shows you where Georgia football is at. Let's say you give Georgia their current defense right now, but you take that second-team offense in there with guys like Brock Vandegrift, Andrew Paul, Roderick Robinson. You see more Micah Morris. You see more, Jared Wilson. You see Monroe Freeling. And I said, what's the spread between Georgia's number 2 offense and this Ole Miss team tonight? I'd probably take Georgia's number 2 offense. And then to add, misery to Ole Miss, you got late in the game, and Georgia's throwing out Troy Bowles out there. They're throwing Jamal Jarrett out there. They've got Damon Wilson out there. They got Samuel Mpemba. They got Gabe Harris. A lot of those guys would be starting for Ole Miss, Brandon, and that's one of the major themes. Lane Kiffin only spoke for about 5 or 6 minutes. People were asking him about the playoffs, and does this take you out of the playoffs? And he's like, man, we're not a playoff team. I had no concept that we were a playoff team. That's why I'm not worried about that. He talked about the differences between Georgia. He had one pointed question where someone asked, how does Ole Miss become more competitive in these games? First thing he said is he went straight to the coaching handbook. He said, we got to coach better. We got to coach them up better. But the second thing, which really sounded like what he actually meant, was he says, we have to recruit a lot better. I think the stat said that Georgia had signed 24, 25 5-stars. We've signed 1. It's like that's a big difference in terms of us in Georgia. He said he thought Georgia's offense was undervalued coming into this game. He said it's different when you have an elite passer in there. He said his team hadn't seen one since Jaden Daniels in the LSU game. And then he was really marveling about one stat, how Georgia averaged 11 yards per play, I believe, and what they did on the ground, Brandon, over 600 yards, 61 total plays for 611 yards. He was like, never seen that before, never been around that before. Somebody asked him to compare Georgia and Alabama in the post-game presser. Kiffin didn't take that bait, but what he did say is that Alabama was a different team then, trying to figure out their quarterback. Obviously, Georgia played a lot better against us tonight than Alabama did. That was only a 24-10 win in Tuscaloosa. Just a lot of stuff, man. And then at the end of this incredible victory for Georgia, you have Lane Kiffin in the midst of it as well, trying to see, is this Georgia defense all it's cracked up to be? Well, look what they did in the second half, Brandon. That was kind of more of what everybody kind of thought a Georgia defense would be. Sure, somebody scored again on the first drive. Sure, it looked like Georgia had trouble setting the edge, and Ole Miss made a lot of yards on the ground on the edge, but when it was needed to, Georgia got the turnovers. Georgia got Ole Miss off the field on 4th down, and I can't imagine anybody in Dog Nation wouldn't have been happy with the way Georgia played tonight, heading into Tennessee next week.
Yeah, I think you're bringing up a really good point that ultimately this ends up being a very successful day for the Georgia defense because they kind of figured it out as the game went on. Obviously, Ole Miss scored some points early and probably made some Georgia fans a little nervous by the fact that the Rebels were Quinshon Judkins gets a couple of touchdowns. They were, like you say, having some success in those outside runs and for a moment making it appear like this might be one of those track meet kind of shootout style games. But this is where, and some of our commenters tonight and callers have made this point, this is where the Georgia offense deserves a lot of credit because it gave cover for the Georgia defense until the Georgia defense did truly figure it out. When you go over, 600 yards of total offense, when you are essentially averaging basically double-digit yards per play, when you have, the explosiveness that Georgia showed, all of a sudden, it was the message early on here that if Ole Miss's offense came to play, then Georgia's offense doubly came to play. And I think that's where you got to give a lot of credit to what Georgia was able to do through the air, on the ground. Obviously, Mike Bobo, a very successful night for him. And this is a Georgia offense right now of the top kind of national championship contender level teams. Georgia, from an offensive explosiveness standpoint, I believe you can make a case this is the best offense in America of the teams competing for a national championship right now.
Yeah, Brennan, the stats certainly back that up. You and I have been doing this a long time, been following this program for a long time, been watching this program for a lot longer than this. Brennan, I can't remember 35 carries for 300 yards in any game, much less a game against a top 10 team. Ole Miss was a top 10 team coming in, and Georgia goes 5 for 8 on third down, I believe. Hardly ever got to third down. 6 for 6 in the red zone. The kicker, Peyton Woodring, keeps kicking the ball well. You look at everything around Georgia, man, and it is a program that I feel like this is what we always kind of thought was going to happen, Brendan. They're just going to get better and better week to week. Certain pieces would get better. Carson would get better. And Lane even said, man, it's like they roll in their first-round tackle. They roll in their starting tackle again. They look a little bit better there. And, I mean, the one thing, if you know football, Brandon, this is not a surprise. Anybody watched the Texas A&M Ole Miss and how Texas A&M barely had a pulse at quarterback. They were going with backups. Guys were hurt, and they moved the ball up and down against Ole Miss. You kind of knew that Georgia was going to be able to do this because Carson just takes care of the football really well, gets rid of the ball really well. And, Brandon, I think it's when we watch Carson play and you watch Carson cook, as everybody likes to say, when he gets sacked or pressured, it's really magnified. Like 4 sacks the previous week and the pressure that Missouri got to him. A lot of times Carson has a really clean pocket to operate with, and he's got guys all over the field. You saw another big chunk play from Ra Thomas, chunk plays from Ra, chunk plays from Dominic Lovett, chunk plays from everywhere you want to look on Georgia's wide receivers. And that's what you get out of this program. You get guys with more weapons than we've ever seen, and you've got the great little Brock Bowers' backside story. Pretty funny story, Brandon. Lots of funny stories you pick up on the field. After the Brock Bowers touchdown, young Andrew Smart comes running around. I guess he was going to the locker room to get something, maybe. I don't know, maybe a Gatorade or something like that. And he just smirks as he runs across press row with all the photographers in the end zone. He goes, he's back. And I mean, that's just moments that here you stack these up with Georgia football. I mean, I got to see light up Krypton from a totally different vantage point tonight, Brandon. I thought, I get the crowds a lot. I get the recruits a lot. Why don't I just see what the players look like during the last light up Krypton of the game, of the season? Who's like right in the middle of my camera frame? Jordan Davis and Stetson Bennett.
Who's that?
You get to see light up Krypton from the vantage point of the Jordan Davis seats. And then also you had the Lil Wayne Fireman song after that. 2 of the greatest dogs of our time, greatest dogs in Georgia history, sitting there soaking up that moment just like everybody in Dog Nation. I think if you had to put together a column or a story and you want to do justice to this win for Georgia tonight, you have to include some sort of phrasing like soaking up the moment. Georgia did. They soaked up everything they could against Ole Miss's defense. The fans that were watching got to soak up an overload, supersized helping of great things for Georgia football on the last time they will play in Sanford Stadium for the 2023 season.
No, I think that's exactly right, Jeff, and that's a good way to close out our conversation between you and me because, I do think it's one of those things where fans have been kind of waiting a while this year for what sort of felt like a signature game through no fault of Georgia's own. This just is not, the kind of season that had like the Oregon game to begin last year or, what Tennessee turned out to be. You kind of waited for that a lot here this year. Well, Ole Miss was ranked in the top 10. Lane Kiffin is a famous enough name and face that probably provides a little extra juice in a game like this. So all of that Georgia fans have been sort of waiting for, perhaps the team itself have been kind of waiting to really demonstrate how good that it is. All of that sort of felt like it was on full display tonight. And listen, I don't think the rest of the season from here is easy. I don't think on the road at Tennessee next week is going to be easy, despite the fact the Vols did not look particularly good today. And I certainly don't think, December and January moving on, I don't think that's going to be, easy either. There's obviously some big challenges here. This is a very crowded race right now for a national championship. Georgia's obviously very much a part of that. But this was a night to sort of appreciate what this team has been, be optimistic about what this team can be, and it certainly seemed like you said, former players, current players, fans, coaches, it just seemed like everybody was enjoying it, and that to me is a very, very special thing to remember.
Got one for you. I'll hold my opinion until I let you air yours first on your own show. Is this the performance that is enough to vault Georgia number one in the college football playoff rankings on Tuesday? I know nobody.
We may have lost Jeff right there. I don't know. Did we lose Jeff? Go ahead, Jeff. I'm sorry. I do. Yeah. So we heard you say, "Is this enough to?" Yeah. Can you hear me, Jeff?
Yeah, I just heard you. So essentially, is this enough, you think, to move Georgia up to number one in the college football rankings? Was this one of those Russell Crowe gladiator moments? Are you not entertained, college football playoff committee? Is that enough to move Georgia to number one next week?
Yeah, I certainly think that Georgia's obviously a very deserving team to be number one, but, it's also a situation where they had a chance to move them to number one last week, chose not to do that. So, perhaps Ohio State keeps that nod. Michigan also goes on the road today, wins at Penn State. They make kind of a case of themselves in sort of the post-Connor Stallions world that, they're going to, be a factor here. Obviously, they were able to kind of do whatever they wanted to against Penn State today, essentially running the ball 32 straight times to close out that game. So, while I think that Georgia is certainly right now a very deserving number one, the truth is that Ohio State probably did enough perhaps to stay at number one if that's what the committee had them at prior to this, and Michigan's going to hear a lot more chatter about them. What's funny, too, Jeff, is this is also a day in which Alabama goes on the road, wins convincingly at Kentucky. All of a sudden now you're starting to hear people talk about, well, guess what? Maybe Alabama's been overlooked. Now it's time to start hyping up Alabama here a little bit. So the one thing this win for Georgia against Ole Miss may have done, while those of us who thought Georgia was number one before this perhaps only feel even more validated in saying that and thinking that, what this may do is kind of quiet down some of the hype that seemed to want to be burgeoning around Alabama after the win that it got today, and probably setting up what's actually going to feel like a pretty big clash here coming up first Saturday in December, with both Alabama and Georgia hearing lots of accolades and maybe stakes higher for this game than they've been in any of the previous meetings in the SEC championship, where unlike 2021, it's very easy to conceive that the loser of this game perhaps will not make the college football playoff. And so, therefore, not only do you have two teams that seem to be peaking at the right time, but you've also got only one spot for the two of them in the college football playoff. So that's probably the next conversation to take place here, is just how much hype and just how much anticipation is going to exist around this first Saturday in December when these two teams meet in Atlanta all over again.
Yeah, just you wait, my friend. The hype train will find a way to have probably Ohio State and Michigan both in the top four. Georgia and Alabama will probably be both in the top five or top six. And the other byproduct of all that is you're going to have two of those teams in those matchups, Brandon, that lose. And those are going to be two teams that are probably going to be better, at least on the football field, despite what the resume of the season says. Two teams that Vegas would favor against probably the other two conference champions that would make it. Look right now, is it the Pac-12 champion? Is it Florida State going to run the table in the ACC? I think we're going to get, Brandon, at the end of it, some really unsatisfied fan bases a little bit that are going to start pointing fingers like they always do. But then I think it's probably going to give some galvanizing momentum to, next year there'll be a 12-team playoff and we won't have these issues anymore.
Jeff, really good stuff. We appreciate that. I know you'll have plenty to come at DogNation.com there as well, including some fantastic photos too. So thanks for stopping by and being a part of our Dog Nation post-game show here tonight and celebrating a big Georgia win here on this particular evening.
Hey, man, one quick recruiting hit. Nitro Showtime Tuggle made it to Athens this weekend. He sat next to Dylan Raiola in the front row of the West End Zone bleachers. Got some pictures with Kirby Smart before the game, so we can confirm that Nitro Showtime Tuggle, the highest-rated wide receiver in Georgia's class right now, one of only two, he made it to Athens today to check out the Dogs, finally, for the first time this year.
Boy, that's good stuff, Jeff, and a great way to close out our conversation. Thanks for that update, and I'll look forward, as I said before, plenty more from you to come at DogNation.com, but certainly that's a name that Georgia fans have been caring about here on the recruiting front. Glad to have Nitro Tuggle back in Athens, Jeff. Really good stuff.
Hey, man, take it easy, man. Have a safe trip home, everybody, and talk to you later, man.
That's Jeff Sentell there. Really good update on Nitro Tuggle. Also, some thoughts from Lane Kiffin's post-game press conference and kind of a big night for Georgia overall here. And I'll give a shout-out to our friends at Cercheros there as well, because obviously we're getting ready for a big party next week with Dog Nation Invasion, but you can have a big party each and every Georgia game week with our friends at Cercheros. There is no better way to kind of get stocked up and have the big catered tailgate, if you want that, or watch party there at home with our friends at Cercheros. You want the fajita bar, you want the burrito platter there, the fresh meats, the guac, the queso, all the really delicious stuff, or the tacos, the burritos, the fajitas, all of that. You can get that with our friends at Cercheros. There's 25 locations all across the state of Georgia, of course, right here in Athens, Georgia there as well. So check out Cercheros.com for more on that. And I feel like after all of these home games, I finally kind of got the Cercheros down as opposed to the beginning of the year when I was saying Cercheros, kind of my Northeast Georgia accent a little bit. It's Cercheros, and you can find out more online at Cercheros.com for that. A lot of big Georgia games coming up, the biggest and best tailgates and watch parties to go along with all those games. So get yours catered from our friends at Cercheros. They'll let you know everything you need to know about all of that. All right, we're going to get ready to wrap up here in just a little bit with a couple more of your phone calls if you want to squeeze those in here. We'll also get a chance to hear from Kirby Smart there as well. Scores from around the rest of the SEC there too. So what do you say we do this? Let's hear a little bit from Kirby Smart. If you want to jump in here in the time we have left to share your thoughts here on Georgia football, we got a chance to do that there too. And then we'll wrap up for the final time here from the UGA bookstore here for the 2023 season as the home slate comes to an end. Kirby Smart from the victorious UGA locker room. His post-game press conference a moment ago, 52-17, Georgia gets the win. Here is what Kirby Smart had to say about that.
Well, I would like to congratulate all the seniors. I think it was 31 guys that walked out there, all different ages. I mean, there's guys that have been here for 4 or 5 years, different things. But there's a lot of walk-ons that don't get a lot of credit that got to go out there tonight, and just a lot of guys that give their bodies and time and effort. And I think we got one of the best scout look teams in the country. And I bet of those 31 guys, I bet 16 or 17 of those guys practice every day for 4 and 5 years, knowing they will never play a snap. I don't think you realize how deep that is, to know I'm never going to step foot on that field, but I'm going to serve a team and do a great job. So I think this senior class, what did you say, Claude, 47? 37, what is it? 47 wins, is that correct? And last year's was 49, so they have an opportunity to do something special, and they've been special to me, and I probably got a little emotional tonight when I saw some of those guys running on the field during that time. I think it's a really hard night when you say bye and then you got to go out and compete and play against people. But a lot of respect for our seniors, a lot of respect for our fan base, and to turn out and be electric and make a difference in the game. But really proud of the overall team effort. And our goal this week was to win the now. From Monday to today, it was win the now. We weren't worried about what happened. The past does not talk to the future. The past does not talk to the present. The present doesn't talk to the future or past. They don't talk. They don't text. They don't send each other messages. All we wanted to do was win the present. And each play that happened in the game, we wanted to win the next. And I thought the guys did a great job of handling that message all week. With that, I'll open it up.
Coach, what was the key to this? Somebody else in adjustments, they scored 2 touchdowns early and then stopped after that.
No real adjustments. I mean, the calls we have work. They just got to play them well. I think the 2 young backers were a little nervous to start the game. We had a 3rd down and long that they converted, the first 3rd down of the game that should have been off the field. And CJ messed up, and then Raylan had a little boo-boo, and those kids are growing up. And I'm really proud of the way they handle things. And, when things don't go well early, sometimes you don't respond well. But like I said, we're going to win the now. The next play don't know that he didn't make the last play. And those two guys did a great job handling that in a tough environment. It's a really tough offense.
Did you get anything more out of Brock than you expected to tonight?
I didn't have an expectation. I didn't have an expectation for Brock. I thought Brock would do what he could, and Brock was hell-bent to get back out there. And, I knew, I don't remember when it was. I can't remember the exact time, so don't quote me on it, but I was watching film of practice, and there was a red blur back behind the film of the play I was watching. It was about 20 yards behind it, and it looked like a guy flying across the field. And I was like, who is that? And I was like, oh, my God, it's Brock. And I knew we had a chance then. And he's different. He took a path that no one takes on that injury and just said, this is what I'm doing.
26 days ago.
All right, so good stuff there coming from Georgia coach Kirby Smart. And if you want to hear the entirety of the Kirby Smart press conference, of course, it's already up for you on the Dog Nation YouTube page as I'm speaking to you live, so you can go there and see that. But give me a couple more minutes. We're almost done. Just wait like 2 minutes. We'll finish up the show, and then you can go see the press conference after that. But it is on the Dog Nation YouTube page here right now. Georgia gets the win, 52-17 over Ole Miss here tonight. If you're just joining us, a lot of praise being thrown around. Another big night for Carson Beck. Obviously, Brock Bowers makes a heroic return, catches a touchdown pass, and really kind of demonstrates that he's just made us something different. And we've enjoyed it now for 3 years. His return tonight almost leaves you speechless, really, and it's really a signal of what he can be for Georgia the rest of the season here now. That's a wonderful thing. Kendall Milton arguably plays his best game in a Georgia uniform tonight, really giving Georgia the extra component with the running game. You love to see that. We thought that Javon Bullard's interception near the end of the first half was a tide-turning moment here in this game as Georgia really got it figured out defensively from kind of like sort of late stage of the second quarter on. They clearly shut the door on anything that Ole Miss was going to be able to do offensively, and it turns out to be the most satisfying, thrilling win for Georgia here this season. A reminder, the best is yet to come. SEC East champs for the final time. This is the last year of divisional play. This is the last time I'll ever get a chance to wear the Own the East t-shirt. And we're obviously thrilled about the chance to punch another ticket for Atlanta in the SEC championship with the Alabama Crimson Tide waiting. We'll have more on the Tide and more on the rest of the SEC coming up as we go cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean here in a moment. But told you about tonight being kind of an emotional night. Last home game, always that way. Also for me, this is my job. I do this for work. But every now and then I'm lucky enough to be able to bring my family to a game, and my son Charlie is here right now. So Charlie, we're going to ask you, because I was in the press box for most of the night. You were kind of in the stands. You heard all the cheering. You heard all the noise. What did you make of the atmosphere in the game tonight?
My voice is very bad.
This is another big Georgia fan here who gave. Listen, if Kirby's watching right now, just know that Charlie Adams is just like everybody else here tonight. He gave his voice in support of this game here this evening. So Charlie, go ahead.
And it was just different because usually the decibel to beat at the scoreboard is 110. It was 120 today, and they beat that, so that's really.
Well, here's what I want to know. Did you have fun tonight?
Yes, sir.
I'm so glad to hear that, and I was really glad I had a chance to hear. And do you think Georgia's going to go on all the way and go for 3 and 23?
Yes.
That's what I like to hear there as well. Charlie, good stuff. That's my son, Charlie. Glad to have him here as part of the show here tonight, and glad to see so many families coming out. It's one of the things we love about our Dog Nation postgame show here at the UGA bookstore. A lot of families pop over. They got their kids, everybody doing that. It really – Georgia football is just one of those things. It's just made better when you share it with people, and I'm lucky enough. I grew up having it shared with me by my dad, by my grandfather, and now, obviously, I get a chance to do that same thing. So for the rest of you, I hope you're as lucky as I am to have somebody like that to share Georgia football with. Wish my daughter was here tonight, but she stayed at home, but certainly a wonderful, wonderful experience. All right, in our final moments here, let's get ready to go cruising around the SEC, courtesy of Royal Caribbean. Obviously, the SEC championship game is now set. It is Alabama and Georgia. Bama goes on the road, beats Kentucky today 49-21. Big game from Jalen Milroe there. And what we said was, well, I think we said this one day late last week on Dog Nation Daily that we're kind of moving into a time of year in which Georgia and Alabama are about to start playing some of their common opponents. They have 4 common opponents. And tonight we saw Georgia beating a team that Alabama beat earlier this year. We saw Alabama this afternoon beating a team that Georgia also beat earlier this year. So you get that chance to make the comparison. Alabama beat Kentucky about as badly as Georgia did earlier this year. Georgia handled Ole Miss easier than Alabama did a little earlier this year. Next week it's Tennessee. Alabama will end its season against Auburn. So you're getting a chance to see, okay, what does Georgia look like playing teams that Alabama's already beaten? What does Alabama look like playing teams that Georgia has already beaten? We're kind of in that stretch of the season, and all of that's just going to kind of add to the hype, and I don't say that in a negative way, justifiably so, the hype that's going to build for this SEC championship, as Alabama seems to be right now in a conversation to once again regain its status as a college football playoff contender. Obviously, a loss already to a team ranked ahead of it in Texas, but nonetheless, there is obviously big expectations around the Crimson Tide now that they've won the division. South Carolina, no problem with Vanderbilt today, 47-6. Boy, really a tough year for Clark Lee's team there. Georgia won the East today before it even played because of Tennessee going on the road and losing to Missouri 36-7. Always fun anytime the Vols lose. Especially fun, though, when it clinches a division for Georgia. And we look forward to celebrating on the East next week as we're on our Dog Nation invasion of the Tennessee River. For those of you lucky enough to be a part of that with us, wish you all could be there. But for those of you who were able to get those tickets, we're really excited about that. Tough loss tonight for Sam Pittman. How about 48-10? Auburn dominates Arkansas. A tough situation. LSU beats Florida. High-scoring game here, 52-35. So the nightmare season for Billy Napier continues. And, of course, Texas A&M gets a blowout win against Mississippi State, 51-10. Michigan beat Penn State a little earlier today when it comes to top 25 action. As I mentioned before, they run the ball 32 straight times. I believe it's 32 straight times to conclude that game. A pretty wild scenario there. Oregon on top of USC right now in a game currently taking place, 19-7. We told you about Michigan beating Penn State. That's 24-15. Anything else of note here? Arizona knocked off Dion today, 34-31, a little closer than experts thought it was going to be. Florida State gets a win against Miami, also a little closer than the experts expected. 27-20 was your final there. Washington hangs on to beat Utah 35-28, once again a little closer than the experts expected. So, yeah, fun night. One more top 25 score to give you. Texas beats TCU 29-26. So, once again, a top-ranked team winning, a top 10 team winning, but once again, a little closer than experts would have thought there as the chase for the college football playoff continues. We'll make that cruise around the SEC courtesy of Royal Caribbean. Of course, next weekend we're on the water for our Dog Nation invasion of the Tennessee River, and all that does is anticipate and grow our excitement for the Dog Nation Cruise coming up in April. If you want to be a part of that, Jessica Slater, terrific travel agent, specially selected for us by Royal Caribbean. She can help you with all of that. So find the website, royaldogs.com. Of course, dog spelled D-A-W-G-S, royaldogs.com. You can get booked up and be a part of our Dog Nation Cruise coming up in April. You can also email her if you want to, jslater@dreamvacations.com. That's jslater@dreamvacations.com. You give her a call. The number's right there on your screen there as well. And whether it be the Dog Nation Cruise coming up in April, the debut of Icon of the Seas coming up in January, or Utopia of the Seas debuting in July, Jessica can help you out with all of that, but we do hope to see you on that Dog Nation Cruise coming up in April. All right. As we get ready to wrap up tonight, celebrating a big win for Georgia against Ole Miss. Want to send out some thank yous here. Of course, Michael Carvel been back with us in the studio all year long, and he'll continue to be with us throughout the rest of our season here on our Dog Nation post-game show. But our buddy Smith, who's always with us here in person. Smith, thank you so much for your great work, our kind of on-site producer here. And once again, another year of really just tremendous hospitality on part of the UGA bookstore, I should say. The UGA bookstore, who's hosted us for so many years for our Dog Nation post-game show. I love it. I've been a shopper here for my entire life, and to get a chance to kind of make this sort of our studio when we're here in Athens, really appreciate that. Gracious host, as always, our friends at the UGA bookstore. We really, truly appreciate them. For all of you who stopped by to see us tonight and tuned in to see us, thanks for making this Dog Nation post-game show so much fun to do each and every week. Next time we speak to each other, I'll be on the field at Neyland Stadium next Saturday, hopefully with Georgia sitting at 11-0, marching towards a chance to go for 3 in 23 with the SEC championship getting all the much closer. So thanks for being here. For for our Dog Nation postgame show. I'll see you back here Monday for Dog Nation Daily. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, everybody. Certainly, if you're a Georgia fan, you got a lot to smile about. 52-17, Georgia on top of Ole Miss here this evening, making a case for itself as perhaps the best team in the country with a chance to prove that in the weeks to come. Have a great night, everybody.